we got to redeem this time. Like, we're not just going to listen to music or, I'm not going to have you be on your phone the whole time and we're just going to be two people in a car together. Like, either you pick stuff or I'll pick stuff that we can listen to together and be able to talk about it and to be able to, talk. And if there's other things that we want to talk about, we can do that too. But this needs to be time that's going to be intentional for us to pour into you and to me, where we can learn together.
Welcome to the How Soccer Explains Leadership podcast, where we explore leadership principles through the lens of the beautiful game.
Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation. Well, folks, I can't believe it, but we are already at the halftime show of season 13. And I'm here with my co-host, my brother, Paul Jobson. We can just talk about the episodes we have heard this half, and more great episodes. My favorite episode of all time was this season half. It is my favorite episode by default because it's my bride. But we also had my actual favorite episode. I don't tell Becca; she's not going to listen to this anyway. We recast it throughout. We're not going to talk about that one, but that Graham Daniels episode we did recast during this half of the season, and hopefully you were able to listen to that as well. But we're gonna chat about those episodes and a couple other things here. But Paul, how are you doing before we get into that?
Doing well, and I just got to say, if people are watching the video on this, my reaction when you said 13, I think every time we do this, I'm shocked at how long this has been going. I think we're into like the 180s when it comes to episodes, something like that at this point. And just what a blessing it's been to be able to do this. So it always kind of shocks me. So kind of took me aback there for a second. But yeah, things are good. I mean, I think like we've talked about, like it's that time of year where seasons are winding down, seasons are picking up. We're about to hit the holidays, or we're into the holidays at this point. And for us, it's crazy because as a family, there's 6 of us. 5 of us, all of our birthdays are from November, or 5 of the 6 are from November to February. So November to February, and then you've got obviously Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, all of that just crammed into this time of year. So it's crazy, but it's fun. And as you know, running ministry, it's a time for fundraising. It's a time for reflection and preparation for the upcoming year, as not only organizations, but as we both know, multiple organizations we're part of, as well as family, and just making sure that the true meaning of what this time of year can be about as we move forward isn't lost in that, and we'll talk a little bit about some intentional time, whatever, as we go. But that's what's going on, man. Just trying to manage all the things that are going and the blessings that we have right now with all the kids and all the things going on in the family. So it's a good time. Good time.
I love that. And that's that intentionality, and I think that's so important. And even as I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving, and Drew's my son who's at college is coming home for Thanksgiving, and typically we've been down in Southern California visiting because of soccer tournament, but with injuries that are keeping us from that, we're actually gonna be home for Thanksgiving, which is kind of crazy. But the intentionality of having family home together that we don't get that time really, and to be able to have Christmas, we're going to have all the kids back, which you kind of take for granted when you're in the midst of just all of them are kids in the house. But now, like, Savannah's going to be home from Norway, and Malia's coming back from Wisconsin, and Drew's coming back from college. And it's like, it's crazy. And, they're adults now and they're moving forward. And so, yeah, I'm just grateful for that we were going to get that time, but then to be able to think of the intentionality of that time, and what does that look like, and how can we do that, and I just pray that it's not just I know we're going to blink and it's going to be done. I mean, as you said, we're now in this will be episode 184, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like that. But with the kids, you just, you're like, man, I want to take advantage of every minute that we have, and then they come home. And the other side of it that's interesting with that is, and parents, you'll know this, is when your kids come home from college or come home from wherever, they get home and they have their plans. They have the things they want to do. And, and so you basically, Becca and I have been just like, all right, we just need to sit back and say, let's let them say what they want to do. And then we'll fit it into that. If we have certain things that we absolutely are going to be doing, then we'll let them know early. But it's, and I remember back when I was a kid, and it's like I did the same thing, right? And so to not be offended by it, not be like, oh man, I wish they do this or wish they do that. And so those are things that just as you grow as a parent, like we've never done this before. We're figuring it out as we go along, right? And at every stage, it's been that. It's like, all right, I can kind of go back and remember what I was like, but they're not me, and we're not my parents. And so it's a different dynamic, and no one has ever had this home at this time,
Right.
So it's just an interesting time, and that I'm absolutely loving it. And it kind of segues into what a little bit what we want to talk about, which is, there's a lot of parents. We know that a lot of parents of young kids or kids that are playing club soccer, whatever you want to call it nowadays, just soccer, other sports, and you're driving your kids a lot to a lot of places, and you're going and you're in the car a lot. It just is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just something that we talk about intentionality. Justin just is started training with one of the local teams here, and and it's an academy team, and so it's further away than I'd normally drive. It's about 30 to 45 minutes depending on traffic. And so I told Justin the other day, I said, Justin, here's the deal. If we're going to be doing this, like I'm supporting you taking this leap and trying this and going after it, which is awesome. But we got to redeem this time. Like, we're not just going to listen to music, or, I'm not going to have you be on your phone the whole time, and we're just going to be two people in a car together. Like, either you pick stuff or I'll pick stuff that we can listen to together, and be able to talk about it, and to be able to, talk. And if there's other things that we want to talk about, we can do that too. But this needs to be time that's going to be intentional for us to pour into you and to me, where we can learn together. And so one of the cool things is we've been listening, like you got to listen to his mom's podcast episode from here, right? And so that was really cool to, be able to hear her on our podcast. We listened to the Graham Daniels podcast episode together. We listened to the Paul Caligari episode together. We're now in the middle of Wells Thompson's episode. And to be able to listen to these things and see him engaging it. And I want to encourage you, parents, like, do this with your kids. That's why we do this show, is for you, to help you know. I mean, that's one of the reasons we do this, is to help you know how to engage your kids about these leadership lessons in the context of the sports that they're playing, in the sports that you're part of with them, because you are a part of it, parents. Coaches, for you to understand this, that you could listen to these episodes with your team, clips of the episodes, whatever, things that you hear. This is a tool for you to use. And so it's someone that I've been able to, probably won't do a book, because that's probably just going to be too much and too trunks. They're not long enough, probably. But we might, I don't know. But other podcasts, listening to the Bible, different things like that. So it's been an interesting kind of experiment, and to see, and it's been really cool. Is every so often we'll just listen to music for a little bit, and that's fine too. But what are your thoughts on that? How do you do that? What are your ways that you're engaging the kids on car rides? And it could just even be to school, like when I have like 3 minutes to take my kids to school, making sure we're praying with them. And sometimes I'll forget. I'll be like, okay, we're dropping off, and they're like, I gotta go, Dad. I'm like, well, we're gonna pray together, and before you go, just pray for your day. But what are some of the things that you and Marcy do?
Yeah, I like how you said that. We're going to redeem this time. I think it's a great way to kind of look at that and phrase that. Just this last weekend, my oldest, he's going back and forth to Dallas, which, depending on where we're going in Dallas, could be a 2-hour one-way trip. And if it's early morning, sometimes he will sleep. Because it's an early morning. We got to whatever. But this weekend he had games on Saturday and Sunday, and we just took the weekend, just me and him, got a hotel. We actually went watched the men play at Dallas Baptist University, just spent some time together, intentional time, and just trying to dive a little bit deeper into things now that he's older. He's 16. I don't have nearly as much time with him as I used to, because I used to take him to school every day, right? And now he takes himself to school. So just finding those moments to really just dive into things that, he's becoming a man, and those are different conversations that I can have with him in those moments that are private that I can't have around, his 8-year-old brother, or things like that. So I enjoy those times. Obviously, that intentional one-on-one time, but, I think we could do a better job of listening to different things and whatever that may be. Sometimes we end up with other people in the car with us because there ends up being some carpool. But yeah, those intentional moments. I remember as a kid, some of my favorite times with my dad were driving back and forth to soccer games, because it was usually just me and him. I'm the youngest of 3 by 7 years, so my dad was my coach at the time, and even when he wasn't, we'd drive back and forth together. And I just remember just some amazing times with my dad in the car, whether it was listening to Atlanta Braves baseball games or having conversations. I just think opening up that opportunity is so important. So I love that you're doing that, with your son, being intentional. I think we probably could do more of that, or finding things that we could listen to together as well. But so important. And I love that, how you said that, though. How do we redeem this? Let's redeem this time. And not, it also can be just, you can look back at it as it can be wasted time, right? I mean, you've got, whether it's, you said 10 minutes, 40 minutes, or 2 hours, or whatever it may be, you may look back and go, man, I wasted an opportunity to get to know my kid a little bit better. So I think those are just some great opportunities to dive in and dig in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, like, if it's 30 minutes there, 45 minutes there, 30 minutes home, 75 minutes, like over 10 days, that's 750 minutes in 10 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. That's a lot of time, right? So that's what, 12 hours, something like that.
It's a lot.
12.5 hours.
It's a lot of math too, by the way.
Way too much math. It's too early for
much
math. I know. I'm like, I'm trying to pull out my phone. I didn't want to pull out my phone and do the calculator, but I think it's like 12.5 hours if my math is correct. And if it's not, please comment and let us know that my math is not correct. But that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. That's just 10 practices. A lot more than that. So when we're thinking about the amount of time, it'll probably, if you did the math, you'd be into years. By the time your kids are done with their athletic. When I learned that the average person spends 8 years of their life looking for stuff, I immediately bought AirTags.
Yeah. No,
seriously though. I'm like, I don't want to waste 8 years of my life looking for, and I guarantee I would hit that mark. I'd probably be above them. I leave stuff places all the time. But with those things, it's like, so what are these tools that we can use to help us to, again, redeem the time, to be able to, if you save time over here, that's more time you have for other things, but you can't increase the amount of time we have, right? We have a set amount of time that we will have here on Earth. And so we can't increase that. But we can use the time that we have better. So
absolutely.
Anyway,
great reminder for all of us.
Yeah. So hopefully, folks, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, folks, too. Like, what are some of the things you do in your car rides? How are you, if you're using this show, I'd love to hear that. I know that would be really encouraging to me and Paul as well. I've talked to a couple buddies who did that when they were taking their daughter or son to practices or to games. And they said, I listened to this episode, listen to that. And they engage in it with my kids. I'm like, man, that is like, it just brings so much joy to me. So anyway, we had we're now in halftime of the season. Like you said, every time it's like, my goodness gracious, it's crazy. That's season 13. We kicked it off with Greg Rubendall, who he is a second time guest, and man, we talked about this. We laughed because this was quite the interview. It was one that all our interviews are unscripted, but this one was like, throw that outline out the window and let's just have a conversation we talked about Candide and, Voltaire's, big, book that he had French in it. We're talking about cultivating gardens. We're talking about futsal. We're talking about biomechanics. conservation genetics. What in the world? It was all over the place, but there were some things in there that I really loved, talking about, like, that unstructured play, that the futsal, and, building, what was it, 60,000 futsal courts around the country. And if we do that, like, we'll have too many great play, like all these things that I don't, I don't know if I agree with all the conclusions, but I agree that we need more of that unstructured play. We need more, and we've talked about that in other interviews, right? But um, that idea that what I love about Greg is just the enthusiasm, the excitement, the passion for just disruption. Like when not just disruption for disruption's sake, but the passion for what I see at the base of it all is, like you're saying, cultivating that garden. How can we create environments for the kids around the country to flourish? And that's really what is his mind. And it's not about him. It's not about, oh, how can I make a name for who I am? It's like, how can we do this thing? And I think those are some of the people that we've had on this show. I mean, Diego Bocanegra is another one that comes to my mind that has that kind of disruptive, not for disruption's sake, but disruptive for flourishing's sake. And so what do you think about that interview with Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think, talking about unscripted, there definitely was. And I think that there were times, I think, even in the podcast, like, okay, hang on, what are we talking about here? Like, I was kind of like trying to keep up with his thoughts were everywhere. But it's so valuable to get somebody on who is really thinking outside the box in some ways, pushing some I don't think it's unpopular. I think there's some of the stuff that is catching on a bit for sure. But I do think that unstructured play, we've talked about it on this podcast before. I think just getting people out to having the love of the game and being unstructured and not being coached all the time is where, I think where we'll get, some better players maybe. I think there's a lot of maybe out there, but nothing less. Just it's not even about. I think we talk too much about the great players coming out of it. And I think we need to talk more about just the love of the game. Can we put futsal courts or little soccer courts in communities and neighborhoods where there's just open play? Like, let's replace these like old parks that are in these neighborhoods that have tennis courts where kids don't play tennis in these neighborhoods. The nets are broken anyway. Like, let's convert it to something that they can play with. So things like that I think are great. And he talks through, technology, that part, there's a lot of technology out there and things that he's navigated. I came out of that conversation going, okay, at some point we've got to come back with Greg and really dive into some of the thought processes he was having on the show.
Yeah.
And really diving in deep and going, how did this pan out? Like, where is this now? And because he's on the cusp of, and has started, I think, some things, even since the podcast that we had. So I got a feeling he might be a three-peat at some point.
That very likely that will happen at some point. And I very much appreciate just who he is and his heart for wanting to change for good. And I appreciate that. About Greg. All right. So the next one we had was Rick McKinley. I just love Rick. I mean, his heart for ministry, his heart for, just integrating faith and soccer and using the sport to make disciples. The work he's doing with MAI, Missionary Athletes International, and the Charlotte Eagles and all the different Eagles programs. But what'd you think about that interview? What are some things?
Yeah, I don't know that we said this on the podcast, but Rick really is, we throw around the word legend loosely on this show, but Rick really is a legend, somewhat of a pioneer, I would say, when it comes to faith and sport through soccer ministry. I mean, he's not the pioneer, but he's one of these guys who's really put some wheels in motion. And we talk about the Eagles organization and things like that. And somebody that I think a lot of folks who are in soccer and ministry, they know of Rick, and I think that, I don't think we talked about that at all really on the show. We talk about the things that he's doing, that God's doing through him, which are really amazing. But just to dial it all back to say, Rick is very well connected because of who he is and how he goes about things. Obviously, is very important. We talk about leadership. That's going to be very important. And just watching how God has grown that and developed that, and really diving into who he is was really a lot of fun because I've known of Rick for a long time. I've known of Rick longer than I've known Rick, just because of our our interactions with the Eagles organizations, whether it was in Charlotte or in Chicago. So it's cool to really just kind of put all the puzzle pieces together. But really an incredible guy who's really done some really incredible things. We dive into a lot of those on the show. It was really, really cool.
One of the things that I love just about that, we have had other people on the show reference Rick, as someone that they've known, that they've respected, that they've done, that he had an impact on their life. But just I love seeing these guys who are been doing it for so long. They have so much wisdom on different things, and just they could be coming with like, oh, I know this, I know this, and that. But the humility of these guys, and to see, like you said, I mean, he would buck the legend status, of course, and that's kind of what makes him who he is, right? It's like, no, I'm just doing what God has called me to do, and I'm just trying to be faithful to that call every day. And I'll take teams to different places around the world, but he has relationships with these people all around the world. And that's the other thing I love about it. It's not going in like, oh, we're going to come in and fix things. No, I have relationships with a bunch of people around the world, and we just get to come into that, and I get to introduce people to these people that I love in different parts of the world, and we get to do stuff together. And I love it. I love that because that's rare in the missions world. It's oftentimes we're coming in as a superior, for lack of a better term, thinking, oh, we got stuff that we're gonna serve the less fortunate, or we're gonna fix these different problems around the world. And he's like, we're just coming to be with you, and let's do stuff like as we would if you're up in Chicago or in Charlotte or wherever, So, which I love. I love that. I love that about Rick. I love that about him, and he is the real deal, man. I mean, like that. That's what I keep saying about. We're gonna be talking about Peter Greer later. He's the real deal. Like, I mean, these guys are leaders of organizations. They're leading. They're doing things at really high levels. But they're super down to earth, super humble, men of integrity, and I just love that. So
yeah, absolutely with you on that one.
Yeah. So the third one, I mean, we did have the interlude. It was a water break with Graham Daniels, and just that is a great cup of cold water every time we get him. I could put him on every 3 months, and it wouldn't be too much. And so I actually listened to it again. Like I said, I listened to it with my son, and man, every time I'm like, man, it's so good, so good. But then after that interlude, after that water break, we came back strong with, I mean, I think the most incredible woman in the world, but I'm a little biased. So
as you should be.
So we had Becca Darke, the one and only, mother of my children, my amazing wife, was on, and it came on the heels of learning that she, we say she's in the Hall of Fame of Colorado College, which is actually a fact. It's a little deceptive. But that's okay. I mean, she wasn't like a big plaque in there. It's because she won an award that everyone who won that award is in the Hall of Fame. Which,
there we go.
She's in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
she's a Hall of
Famer. She's a Hall of Famer. So I just wanted to clarify that if there's some like Colorado College people listening to this and they're like, "What are you talking about? I don't remember her being inducted in the Hall of Fame." She's in there. So I'm just, it is what it is. It is what it is. So. Folks,
she's in there. Fact check. She's in the Hall of Fame.
Fact check. Okay, well there it is. Fact check.
More importantly, if she's not, I'm sure she's in the Hall of Fame in your house.
In my house, in my heart, she's in the Hall of Fame for sure. She's in the Book of Life. That's the most important. Who cares about these Hall of Fames?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Anyway, but she, I'm just gonna give you the floor. I have some thoughts, but whatever.
Yeah,
I want to hear what you thought.
I mean, the fun thing for me was kind of reliving the old days back when we were all in Atlanta and really barely, we didn't know each other really at that point, but just diving back into the beginning of, something that had become is very familiar to her now, but like diving back however many years, I won't say kind of, it's not the beginning of it for her, but seeing a process there where she had an opportunity to step into, uh, a brand new league for women, into rooms of women who probably were not Christians for the most part, but gathering with a group of women who were to see what could be done there. And then the mentorship she had from, another friend of both of ours, to get into that. And just talking about, I think that might be one of the many things that stood out to me in this is that topic we had on mentorship, right? And I think I even said on the podcast, like, I think we are now at the age that Carolyn and Reed were when they were working with us in Atlanta, and so just kind of a cool connection for me. Those are the personal connections are always fun. And of course, I know what a massive impact our spouses are on our lives and how we get to do what we do. And, you gawing over her the whole time was totally fine and understandable. I think I did the same when we had Marcy on, but no, I think that was a really cool thing for me, is that we talk here. It is about leadership. We talk about coaching. We talk about mentorship, and now how she is, had been mentored and now is mentoring, and how she's leading, the next generation of folks, not just greatly inside her household, right? But outside of it as well, was really, really impactful for me.
Yeah. No, I really, what was cool about it is, like, I learned stuff about her during the podcast, because I mean, it's not often you're like, oh, just go back to your childhood and tell the stories. And, like, her sisters are like, I learned stuff about her. Like, it was pretty cool. Like, because she doesn't talk about herself much. It's not her favorite thing to do. She's not a self-promoter. She's the opposite of that. Her kids barely know that she played soccer, because she never talks about it, doesn't talk about any of the accolades, doesn't talk about any of that stuff. But one of the things she did talk about was just kind of making room for others in our lives, and absolutely something she does. And that's something that is, like, really important for us to make that room. And I mean, one of my pastors would say, if you ever have like a coffee meeting with somebody, have a buffer for 30 minutes, either for that person or for somebody else you might see in the coffee shop, so that you're not constantly having back to back meetings where you're having to rush out. It's like, we don't have the ability to make room for people, because we don't have room in our schedule, because we pack it too much.
Yeah.
And it basically is, we either have to prove our worth, or we think we're more important than we are. And both of those are wrong. And so I love that about it. The other thing she talked about, interestingly, because we recently have done another interview that's going to be coming out after this episode, talking about the parable of the talents. She talked about that too. Apparently that's a season 13 thing, is the parable of the talents. So I don't think we'd ever had that on before. And now it's twice in, like, a few episodes, which is kind of fun. The last one, so that's Becca, and that was fun. That was definitely a fun one. And we did talk about, and hopefully we can do it, getting our respective wives on together to talk about different stuff, and, motherhood. And, we're going to have one on, fathers, the importance of discipling men, coming up this half. Maybe we could pull that in and have the, motherhood conversation. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
Let's see. Just teasing it.
Play that one out.
If we can get the stars to align where their schedules would be something that fits our schedule too, then we're supposed to do it. So
probably two of our hardest guests to actually get on, if I remember correctly. Either one. One of them was my fault that we didn't get on with Becca earlier, but I do know that our wives' schedules are absolutely crazy. So
very difficult. It's a little easier since Becca is not teaching PE anymore, but that's okay. Our last one was actually one that you did not do, because it was one I had with my other podcast, the Think Global Do Justice, which used to be Think Orphan. And it's with Peter Greer. And it was one that I did. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, this is so good. I want to make sure our audience here also hears it, because it's all about leadership. Peter is a leader I respect. We did have him on. We have had him on this podcast. We've had him on earlier on talking about his days with Messiah College, and also his work with Hope International, and how his leadership lessons he learned at Messiah. He had a funny story about how he ended up being on the Messiah team with its goalkeeper, and because the buddies, needed someone anyway. Um, but he talked about how leaders lose their way. That's the name of his new book, How Leaders Lose Their Way and How to Make Sure It Doesn't Happen to You. And it's really kind of, he talks about it, about kind of personal mission drift. But in the episode, he really goes into that Solomon, Ecclesiastes, and Solomon did not finish well. Solomon was a leader who he wrote, he had the wisdom beyond any other man, but he lost his way. And the book kind of has this idea of, and as you talked about in the podcast as well, this idea of these misguided pursuits that we have. And it talked about these currents in our life that, the idea is kind of that Romans 12:1 and 2, where Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world. If we don't do something else, we will be conformed. It's a passive verb. It's something that will happen to us. And so this idea of this personal mission drift, I really loved that interview and kind of what Peter talked about. And was there anything that jumped out to you?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic, and I think probably very much needed topic. I think there's so many self-help leadership books out there that just talk about what are the 10 things to do, what are the 7 habits or whatever, here are all these great, but not failing, learning from other people's failures learning from our own failures is great, but learning from others is also, well, how not to put yourself in that position. I think it's a great topic to go on. I think one of the things that stood out to me, when we talk about just identity, he talks about identity and he talks about, I can't remember the exact phrase, you know the phrase, but he doesn't want to be known as what he is doing, right? And I've talked about that too, I never thought of myself as like a soccer coach, right? So it's easier for me to get out of it at the time because I was a husband, a dad, I coached soccer, but my identity wasn't caught in that. And him even saying things like, hey, on your business card, put interim CEO or interim leader or whatever, knowing because that is not going to be forever. And that stood out to me because it's like, yeah, that's not, we do get so caught up in what we're doing. And he says that we're so caught up in what we're doing and not really who God wants us to be. And I think that's an important thing for all of us as, parents and coaches or whatever our role is, where that is not, that should not be how people see us. Oh, that's the soccer coach, or that's the CEO of the bank, or that's the, whatever it may be. Like, and I think that always hits me, because while I hope that's true of who I am, I always struggle to make sure that is. So that's something that kind of stood out to me. And what was the actual lingo he said? You said it to me earlier.
It's the resume virtue versus the eulogy virtue.
Eulogy, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it's who do we want to be known as? What do we want to be known for? And he actually he talked a little bit about. I think he talked about it in the podcast, but I know he's talked about it before. I've actually had him on 6 times on the other podcast, so he's a guy I respect deeply. Yeah. But he wrote his eulogy. I've written mine as well, but every year on his birthday he reviews it to make sure he's living that out.
I remember that. We talked about that in the first in his podcast we did.
Yeah. He talks a lot about mentoring and there's a lot of cool stuff. The cool thing about this book that he has, this How Leaders Lose Their Way book, is it's kind of brings in a lot of the other books that he's written, and it kind of brings them together into just a great tool for leaders to, as you said, learn from others. But we're gonna. It's actually kind of funny in the interview. I asked him, what misguided pursuit does he struggle with the most? And he goes, well, why don't you start, Phil? And and I actually did, and it was a good. I think it's a really good exercise to take a look at and go, what's the one that is my biggest struggle? And to share that with others. Now I happen to share it with, the internet, but that's fine because it's real. And it's like the more people that can hold you accountable in a way that's healthy, the better. because if something's in the dark, that's where it's going to fester. That's where it's going to
Mhm.
grow. If it's a negative thing. And so we need to bring it to the light, and you need to bring people into your life to be able to help you to protect yourself against those things. So with that, season 13 halftime is coming to a close here. What are your last kind of parting thoughts about all of it?
Yeah, I mean, another great half, and like, we've already recorded some for the next half of the season, and it's just going to continue to hopefully just encourage people, as we go through these different episodes and these different people, just such a wide spectrum of folks that we've been able to have on here. And it just, again, it encourages me. I know probably the same for you. And just, as we kind of kind of come towards the end of the year, people just kind of reflecting on, you know, what's been important. And, if there's things in these podcasts, like you said before, that have been helpful, share those things. Cause, if there's things that are helpful to me, I want to make sure I share them with others so that, they can experience the same encouragement or wisdom or insights that hopefully we're able to bring out through these podcasts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, that brings another half to a close. And grateful for you. Grateful that you're part of this show. Grateful that you are that you're using the stuff that we're talking about. And it's something that I'm really encouraged when I hear stories about how God is using these conversations that we get to have. And that's what makes this show great is people using it. And I know Paul and I learn, and as we say selfishly, like we get to learn from these incredible conversations. And I mean, the one that's coming out next, Paul, I was taking notes as the guy's talking. I mean, it was great. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's the reality of it. Like, that's what we hope you're doing. We hope that you're learning from this. We hope you're sharing with others. We hope you're talking about it with your spouse, with your kids, with other people in your life. And that it's spurring on conversations. It's spurring on the love and good deeds that Hebrews 10 talks about. And so we do hope that. And so if you want to learn more about what Paul's doing with Warrior Way, you can do that warriorwaysoccer.com, be in the show notes. Nations United is something that we're working on in connection with World Cup 26, where we're basically, there's all kinds of tools for the church to help use basically disciple making strategies in connection with World Cup to come into the shores of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. That's something that you're interested in. nationsunited.net. You can check that out in the show notes as well. But as always, folks, we hope that you're taking what you're learning from this show and you're using it to be a better spouse. You're using it to be a better parent. You're using it to be a better coach, a better player, a better leader, better in everything that you do. And you continually remind yourself that soccer does explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great couple weeks.